Alright, today we're going to work on the rear brakes on a Nissan Altima. Alright, well, one of the first things I noticed is how small the lug nuts are and how deep they go into the well, into the wheel well here, whatever it is. In order to keep it from going all the way into my deep well socket, I'm just going to stuff some cotton balls in there, and that way the lug nut should just pop right out. Alright, typical of modern cars, the parking brake is drum brake with shoes on the inside, and the disc brake on the outside is for stopping. And this particular vehicle, as a matter of fact, all Nissans, Altima, Maxima, they use ceramic brake pads, which I found interesting, and that's from the factory. Alright, there are two caliper bolts that hold the pads in place, so we're going to take a 14mm socket or wrench and take these loose. That was easy. Well, that one's gonna be a little tougher. So the bottom one has this traction bar in the way, so I'm gonna have to be careful. If I can't, the socket's not going on there real straight, I think I'm just gonna grab a wrench and take it loose with the wrench. Alright, so I have my wrench on there. I'll just take it loose with the wrench, and that was pretty easy too. We'll just unscrew both of these. Alright, I like to compress the piston a little bit. You can just do that by just turning it, and you can see it's pretty much loose. Also, you can see the bolt is hitting the traction bar here. So if you're not changing out your rotor, the way this is designed really is you just take out the top bolt, loosen the bottom bolt, move the caliper off to the side, compress the piston, take your old pads out, replace the hardware pieces, put the new pads in, and put it back together. But we're replacing the rotor, and I like to clean everything up. I like to clean all this up. So I take everything apart and put it back together. Well, I do want to take this out, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the caliper mounting bracket off next, and that'll give me enough room to take everything apart, and then I'll clean it up and put it back together. And the rear pads, they just come right off very easily. They ride in these replaceable tracks here. Your new brakes should come with brand new parts. Alright, so I have a 19mm wrench I'm going to put on the top and bottom bolt to remove the caliper mounting bracket. So let's get that off. Alright, well, I had to use my breaker bar to get that one loose, so I'll use my breaker bar on the bottom. Alright, with the bolts out, that just comes right apart. Alright, next we're going to take the rotor off, and we're going to put a rotor on there that has been coated because this vehicle sits outside. Wanted a coated rotor to help forestall the rusting. Now with the parking brake off, so that the shoes are not engaged, we'll just take this right off. So now we'll clean up the axle around in here. I always do that. That's usually where the rotor sticks, and sometimes the wheel will stick to that also. Now's a good time to inspect the shoes. Make sure they're okay. You should never have to replace them, except for maybe after about 15 years. They'll just kind of fall away on their own. Unless you drive off with the parking brake, then you have to replace them sooner. So you want to unwrap your new rotors. See, this has a coating on there to help prevent rust from starting. And then you also want to clean this off. Usually there's a preservative on there, so you want to get some brake cleaner and just spray that off, clean it up. So we'll just spray both sides. Ready to assemble. It's interesting to note the rotors have a place for an alignment screw, but there is no place for an alignment screw to go on there. So they just have this little rubber plug that goes in there. I like to put a real light coating of Never Sees on there too. being careful not to get it on the studs. Just put the new rotor on. So we have our new rotor on. Now we need to put the caliper mounting bracket back on and the caliper as a unit. Caliper mounting bolts are different. They're the same length, but one has like a rubber grommet to help it stay in place and the other one doesn't. So anyway, this was the top one. So I have my caliper mounting bolts cleaned up and I'm going to lubricate them with some Vaseline. I use the brand name Vaseline, not a generic, and a very light coating on the bolts. Alright, I cleaned up the contact areas for the new hardware when I put the caliper mounting bracket back on. Now this particular brake set came with a whole bunch of different hardware pieces, so you're going to want to match up the one that came off the car with the ones that are in the bag. So it looks like 2 of them are large and 2 of them are small, and ours are going to match up with the small ones. And one little note of detail, the caliper mounting bracket has this little guide piece on here. It's I don't know whether it's acting like a washer. It's real thin and the mounting bolt goes through it, so make sure that's properly in place. Next we'll reassemble the brake pad guides here that come on here, that go on here. It's really pretty easy. There's only one way for it to go on. Most modern cars have these replaceable pieces now, whereas before they used to ride directly on the caliper mounting bracket, so that's nice. It helps prevent brake noise. Now if you remember from earlier, the caliper mounting bolt will not go on there because of this torsion bar here. You have to pull it away to get it started, so we will do that. Going to want to compress the piston. You can use a C-clamp if you don't have one of these tools. Clean gloves for reassembly. So with the top caliper mounting bracket bolt just barely started in place, I'm going to lift the bottom out of the way and start the bolt for the caliper to go in place. We'll start that and then we can reassemble it. There we go, just lay that off to the side. We'll put the pads in place and tighten down all the bolts. Remember, always start all your bolts before tightening them down, so that way you know they're aligned. We'll tighten down the caliper mounting bracket bolts. So now we'll just install the new pads. Just as easy as that on both sides. And the caliper should just go right over top here. And you want to make sure that the bolt protector is underneath there, so you don't pinch it off. And then you just start your clean bolt. And remember, on this particular car, the rubber grommet was on the top side. Now because these lug nuts are so small and they go in so deep, I put some cotton balls in my socket to help it come out easier, and also to keep it from going all the way into the socket, because then I can't start it. So I'll just get these guys started. And then I'll torque them down. One other note of detail is one of the pads has a squealer on there. What that does is, as the lining wears down, that'll touch the rotor and cause a lot of noise to let you know that the lining is wearing and your pads need to be replaced. And that is located on the upper inside pad on the passenger side. So it's going to go in there like that.